So I'm gonna start by making my buildings. I'm gonna do a couple rows of buildings, so I'll make my shorter ones first and then I'll make some longer ones behind it. And I'm going to just start with a rectangle. Now, if you want to be really exact, you can use a ruler. I like the kind of playful feel, so I'm not really gonna be too concerned if my buildings are super exact. I can do some other shapes besides rectangles. I can even do some like interesting, like maybe like there's a wavy building. This is fun. So I'm just gonna keep it lighthearted and I've got my first row of buildings. I like that. Maybe I'll even put some different roofs on top of these guys. I'm not gonna worry too much about too many details. And I'm gonna do a second row of buildings. I don't want my building to come right out of my first row, so I'm gonna kind of find the middle of one to do my second row. That's awesome. I want to fill up my space with a lot of buildings. I've got a little space for the sky, and I'm just going to be happy with the way that looks. Before I do any Sharpie, I want to add some faces. So we're thinking all those like emoji faces that you guys have done. So you can just do like, you know, a happy face. You could do, you know, those little crying faces. Ah ha ha. All the silly faces y'all are drawing anyway. You could do cutesy-eyed, angry-eyed. I want to see some real creative ones. Maybe you will have a face that I've never seen before. I would love that. Okay, if my eyes aren't exactly the same size, that's just fine. I'm gonna go ahead and outline this. I haven't added any windows yet, but I'm just gonna get this kind of blocked in, and then I can go in and add some more windows and details as well. I am slowly going over my lines. It looks fast because I'm zoomed up, but I don't want you to speed up too much. If you do get off of your pencil at one point, you may go in and erase that afterwards. You can take this in and erase any extra pencil lines. All right, and I do still have to add some windows. You don't have to put faces on every single building. I did mostly. Now, if you want to do your windows with pencil first, that can be a good idea, maybe especially on your first building. Make sure that, you know, you got it down. Our windows need to be in rows. You don't want the buildings all over the floors all over the place. So try to make your building windows all next to each other in rows. Typically they are rectangle or squares, but you can get creative if you are feeling inspired. Sometimes they might have crosses in them. Try to keep it consistent. So if I do like a little plus sign in one window on a building, I'm going to do it on all the ones in that building. Sometimes they might be arched. Sometimes if you have a weird building shape, you might have a weird window shape too. Notice that as I'm using my Sharpie, I have a paper behind my artwork over here. That's so I don't get the Sharpie on the table, because that's no fun for cleaning. The last detail that you may want to think about is if you want it to be day or night. Rizzi does pretty cutesy clouds, so I think I'll make mine day because that sounds fun. You can think about what's the weather like outside. I'm also going to sign it on one of my buildings. Now I can think about paint. For paint, I'm going to be using some watercolors. There's different ways that you could add color. For one, you could make your own watercolors with markers if you wanted to. Or I take a marker and I find a marker that works. Outline the outline edge of the building. And then you take your water on your brush and you kind of turn that into paint. That's kind of a fun thing. It makes it a little bit lighter color than the original marker. This does work best on paint paper, like thicker paper, but it can work on other stuff. And it also depends on the brand of marker sometimes. Some markers become better paint than others. But if I ever want some more color, I just go to the edge and kind of pull off that color off my marker. And then I have a fun, like, dark outside, light inside. Now, if you find it really hard to avoid the windows, just go ahead and paint over the windows for now, and we can add a different color on top of your paint. Or if you can avoid them, then you can try to go around them. It just depends, you know, on the building, on your level of patience. There we go. Now, you can do that with marker, or you can go ahead and use your watercolor paint, depending what you have around. So if you find that someone messed up your watercolor paint, you can ask Mr. Rosell for help in cleaning it, or you can, what I do is I add some water, I rinse my brush, and then I kind of get that dirty stuff off and put it on my paper towel. That way I've got a nicer yellow again. So we have to wake our water paints up with our water, and then fill in our buildings. I'm gonna make this a very colorful city. I switch colors, I rinse off my brush, I rub it on the bottom of the water cup, dry it on my paper towel, make sure that there's no color there, and then I can switch to another color. I don't want all these colors mixed together. Now, if your painting's wet, you can rotate it so that you can paint somewhere without putting your hand on the wet paint. So I frequently am rotating my papers. Another fun thing to do, so this orange was dried out. Remember how I tried that earlier? I can always dip it in the water and then it works again. So if you wanted to use markers and have dried markers, dip it in the water and then it kind of becomes like marker paint. Helps getting in those tiny areas. Drying out, I dip it in my water, got my marker paint. So there's lots of different ways to make this colorful. We'll keep those marker paints in a different section. We don't want to put those back in the regular marker area. You ever notice that your paint is really light and you want it to be darker? Just go back in and get more paint from your tray. So maybe you just need to rub your paintbrush in there a little bit more. Maybe you've got a little bit too much water or something like that. But don't be satisfied with that light color unless that's what you're going for. Make sure you go back in and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 can give you a much brighter, bolder color. Sometimes it might be fun to have that light color. Sometimes you want the dark color, so it's good to know how to get that. Maybe I'll use the lighter color over here. Lighter, I add more water. And sometimes my color got slightly into another building. That's okay, it happens. Don't stress. Okay, so I'm actually gonna change my mind. I wanna paint the sky black after all. So I'm gonna just go in and paint it black. Ooh, I could do half and half. One of the reasons I'm changing my mind and making it nighttime is because I feel like there's just so many colors in my piece that I really wanna make it like a nighttime. So you could do dark blue or black, or leave it lots of colors. Sometimes Rizzi does divide his artwork down the middle. Let's see what that looks like. You know, I think I like the halves and halves. If I'd been thinking up ahead of time, I would have done the sun on the sky side, blue side, but oh well, I'm not too concerned. I'm gonna let this dry and then I'm gonna add my final details on my windows. Now that my paint is dry, I can start to think if I want to add other details on here. Maybe I want to do some colors inside my windows to make them pop out a little bit more. You can do that with marker or colored pencil or really any supply. Other things you can do is if you had some white spots, you could fill those in on the building. Sometimes when I paint, I don't always hit all my spots, so I could always go in and kind of fill in some of those white spots with some light colored pencil. And then I can also go ahead and if I wanted to cut and glue anything on here, if I still have time, like my sun over there, so maybe I'll make a moon or some like stars. So let's see what that looks like. I'm gonna give these stars a little glow, like kind of Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night look. And maybe on my blue side, I'll put a bird. Rizzi did a lot of big birds in his pieces. He liked birds, cats, and all sorts of animals. So maybe I'll draw one up like a little cartoon bird over here. If I'm ever cutting anything complex out, I always cut around it, and then I go back in and cut the little pieces out. And I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Here is my finished Rizzi artwork.